Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Paul Stevens, editor of Short Term Rentals, and welcome to this Rockstars 4.0 webinar on how is social media changing hospitality as we know it, sponsored by Flywire. This is me, Paul Stevens, editor of Short Term Rentals, part of the International Hospitality Media Portfolio. Now check out this short video from our Rockstars series sponsor, Flywire.
Nemo Bay is a wilderness resort remotely located in the southern part of the Great Bear Rainforest, which is just off the northern tip of Vancouver Island in British Columbia. And people that come to Nemo Bay are usually looking for adventure, for wilderness, for wildlife. Oftentimes guests leave in tears just feeling so moved by the place. What really appealed to us about Flywire originally was just their ease in payments for credit cards, because at the time our credit card payment was not easy by any stretch. People would have to go to the bank to do a bank wire transfer, or they'd have to call us with their credit card information. We'd have to write it down. There's a lot of room for error, and if someone had a trouble with a bank wire, we'd have to try to resolve it on our own. If not, we'd have to call the bank. It was just very complicated. There was nothing easy about our payment system. One of the great things about Flywire is it will automatically convert into their currency if they wish. And they have the option of paying by credit card or by wire transfer. And it's just a click right from their living room, right from their computer, right from their phone. So it's just made the payment process so much simpler and easier for them. I've been totally blown away with how much it really transformed our payment system for both our side of things as well as our guest side of things. Within our work week, we save about 25% of our time not having to worry about payments. It really allows us to focus on our customer care and really giving us the space and time to really focus on our guest experience. I can't say enough good things about Flywire and how it's transformed our business. We've saved money with Flywire, and just working with the Flywire team has been an absolute delight.
So thank you to Flywire for sponsoring this session. So in terms of webinar guidelines for today, please keep your sound on mute and your camera off if you're not speaking. I'm being ably assisted by my colleagues Justin and Joe today. All the details you can find in the chat below, and please of course do post any questions you have there as well. A recording will be sent round to everyone after the session today. So let me introduce our Rockstars, our exciting Rockstars lineup for today, and we're going to kick things off with Ya, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ya Birago. I'm the co-founder and CEO of FemmebnB. Currently, relocated a bit to Ghana from Canada, so I'm speaking from Ghana right now. And yeah, that's a little bit about myself. So FriendBNB is essentially a short-term vacation rentals for women to women with an AI travel assistance to help women plan their trips from start to end, focused on community, really emphasizing on really building a community to help women travelers around the world.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ya, and pleasure to have you tuning in all the way from Ghana today. Next up, we've got someone again who's very far away from us here in the UK. It's Will from Slick Talk. Take it away, Will.
Thank you for having me, Paul, and everybody at the team for short-term rentals. But I'm Will Slickers, host of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, and also co-founder and CEO of, or not CEO, COO of Recreation Rentals. I'm just now, again, like I am actually relocated from Washington, Seattle, Washington, now to Denver, Colorado. So pleasure to be here and excited for this webinar. Thanks again.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Will. And next up we have Kate.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, everyone. I'm Kate Stinchcombe-Gillies. I am the founder of Coconut PR, which helps travel and hospitality businesses raise their profile. And most recently, I'm now the Chief Marketing Officer for TouchStay, creators of the digital guidebook. So very firmly in the vacation rental space.
Thank you very much, Kate. And last but not least, we have Sarah.
Hi everyone, thanks Paul. My name's Sarah Orchard. I'm the founder of getfullybooked.com, and I help holiday and hospitality businesses move from being invisible online to being visible and fully booked. I'm also the co-owner of the Hudnall's Hideout Treehouse, which we created and launched in February last year, and I own that with my husband Adrian, and we're now fully booked until the end of 2022. So I've been working to help other holiday and hospitality businesses use my marketing techniques to achieve the same.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So for context, we have news from the short-term rental space. So we're going to look at how to use social media to grow your vacation rental business effectively. A shout out to short-term rentals from Your.Rentals. Thank you very much to their team for that. We're going to look at TikTok for vacation rentals, a piece there from our friends at Rentals United. And finally, you featured in our 2021 International Women's Day feature piece early this year. So we're going to explore a little bit about the idea of solo and female travel a little bit later on. So let's kick things off first of all with our first sort of topic area, and it's looking at how brands, platforms, operators are shifting the way in which they're communicating through social media during the pandemic, or in fact, are they doing that? So we're going to start, I think, with Will on this one, because Will, we've already heard there, you're a host of Slip Talk Hospitality podcast, you're one of the co-hosts for the Good Morning Hospitality every Monday morning across various channels. So you've got this busy and ever-growing pipeline, it seems, of great content across the short-term vacation rental industry. But how would you say that you've stepped up across social media, really, especially within the last 20 months, as we're seeing a lot of your face across social media at the moment, which is a good thing?
Hopefully it's a good thing, and hopefully people aren't getting tired of it by now. But I think for me in the beginning, we realized that, when April of 2020 hit, it was a pretty scary time for everyone in the world. Everything kind of stopped. It was very dead. Nobody knew what to do. And if you were trying to post something on social media, it was like, do I post this? Is it like relevant? Do I even know what I'm talking about? And then finally things started getting normal. And I think for me, what just kind of clicked was more of being omnipresent. So not just posting once on Facebook to, just do it and mark it off the checklist, but really finding not only the channel that you prefer and where your audience is, but then being consistent on, how you communicate, how you're, being not only on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, but like you're finding all the new ways that you can push content and be relevant and bring value. That's a cliche term nowadays, is how do I bring value? But really, like, how do you be, social media, I think from what I've seen in the last like 20 months has been, you can't really hide. You have like people, it's a transparent thing. Like you can of course show only the highlights, but I think now more than ever, people are really starting to see people for who they are, seeing businesses for who they are and what they care about and their values. And people are really paying attention to not just one channel, but multiple. So email all the way through every social media platform you can find. So that's just that was my, I guess, step up, was just being omnipresent.
Of course. And, you've, as we know, even before doing these podcasts as well, you were in the hotel industry as well. So presumably you've learned a lot from that. You've now branched on your property management company with your co-founder, Adam.
Correct, yeah.
So, why were these important opportunities for you to get your pieces across social media, would you say?
It was really important, I think, just because for when you're trying to grow a business, you need to you got to make it known. You have to make it known that you're actually a business. So when owners that we want to sign properties with, or whether it's a service provider that we want to work with, people do their due diligence. They look up, they Google, they click your website, they click the backlinks on your website, they go all over. And we want to make that presence. We want people to know that we're here and that we're here to do good and like actually benefit the industry. So that's for us the reason why we were so eager to start posting and getting it out there.
Thank you very much, Will. We'll turn to Yar because in your intro, Yar, you mentioned that Femmebnb, we want to learn a little bit more about it, but it's described as the first social networking vacation rental platform that's alleviating these safety issues that are related to female and solo travel, which is so topical right now. But how have you been able to sort of cultivate, and again, you mentioned it with your intro, the idea of this feel of community. How have you been able to do this, do you think, with actually quite little in terms of marketing spend?
Thank you so much for the question, Paul. So with FriendBNB, our premise is around community and really creating that that safe space for women to tap into that community if they want any help or before they travel anywhere. And as Will said, last year, the pandemic had a huge impact on us in terms of how we were able to actually do things, because we're actually initially supposed to soft launch in March, and then of course the pandemic hit. So we had to, go back to the drawing board to figure exactly what we should do, because we were literally in panic mode. So we figured, okay, this will be the best way for us to actually move forward is really invite women that are eager, want to travel, but they can't travel, to really join our community, talk about, different ways that they can, of course, travel virtually, even through, different means. So we started actually having different live series on Instagram. We had workshops. We even have something called virtual meetup. So where women all around the world would basically, we did it every other Saturday. We just kind of have a sip of wine. We talk about travel and basically anything that will make us happy, knowing that we can go anywhere. So that basically kind of helped us. At that point, we grew our social media to over 100% at that moment. And eventually we found different ways that will really help women know that we actually exist. So we partner with other organizations on social media, even interviewing influencers as a way for them to also kind of go out there and kind of preach about us, and that kind of help us grow our community. So we try to be creative, really also not knowing that it was a very sensitive time for travel. We wanted to make sure that we pass the message on to let people know that we're all about safety. We're not encouraging people to travel, but we are a community to help women that do want to travel, but having that anxiety to do that at this moment. So that was another way for us to be able to cultivate our community to the level that we are right now.
I believe you have something called as Her Community, is it? This online space. Could you sort of just give us a bit of an insight into that as well?
Certainly. So currently right now, that Her Community is being developed as part of our as an online space. However, we do have the other side of Her Community that's through our social media pages, Facebook, and as well as our online or virtual meetups. So that is basically what we call Her Community right now. So when you join our platform, you're part of that. You're able to connect with women before you travel or during your travel, or even connect with women even when you're not traveling at all. And that way, even when the time comes for you to travel, you have someone to connect with before you travel. So that's what we've been doing right now. And of course, that has definitely helped a lot of people. I know a woman that joined our community met someone in Mexico and went to Mexico and met the person. So that's essentially what we're trying to do, really create that, that safe space for women to connect before they travel and during their travel.
And how do you think social media has actually maybe amplified this female and solo travel, which your whole brand is based around?
I think that, social media has definitely amplified female travel, especially solo travel, because there's a lot of influencers now on social media really promoting travel, safety tips about solo travel. And of course, people want to do what they see on social media. And travel has become a huge trend now where people want to travel and take pictures just to post on social media. So that, I think, that has played into what we're trying to do right now in terms of really providing services for women that want to travel by themselves and providing that end-to-end travel solution for them. So social media definitely has played a huge role in terms of our agenda in terms of women's safety when it comes to travel.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll go next to Kate, because of course, doing my research and seeing you across social media as well, Kate. I know that you get called on by BBC TV, radio to do these live segments talking about whether it's travel or hospitality, even airport openings as well. So I'd be keen to get your insights, I guess, into how are brands maybe using social media effectively during the pandemic, and actually that extra length to connect with their audiences, would you say?
Well, it's been an interesting 18 months or so, hasn't it, really? And there's definitely been a full spectrum of how brands have taken to the challenge. Many, where are we? So in the first lockdown, I suppose, many retreated away from social because they were just dealing with too much behind the scenes. And to some extent, that was really understandable. Others rose to the challenge and saw it as an opportunity to, as Yar said, just keep that dream of travel alive, not to sell travel, just to continue to inspire. We get such rich experiences from travel, and I think the brands that really have that at the heart of their story did best on social, because they recognized that they had a place in the lives of their consumers. They'd spent time pre-pandemic creating those communities on their social channels, building up a sense of loyalty, and recognized that actually, desolate as our lives were when we couldn't go anywhere or do anything, and some of us couldn't work, we needed hope and we needed that inspiration to keep the dream alive. So there were the two, well, there's one brand that particularly I think did that really well. In fact, both my examples are from down in the southwest of England. So Beach Retreats, you may know them already, down in Cornwall. They really cleverly ran a campaign through the hashtag Be Here Later, which enabled them to stay present, showcase their portfolio, showcase the gorgeousness that is Cornwall. And once we were able to travel again, they flipped it to simply be here. So, so simple. It wasn't shouty, it wasn't in your face. It enabled people to ask questions, to engage with their content, and yeah, as I say, keep the dream alive. And the other Southwest brand that I love on social media is Stinchcombe Finest. They do a fabulous job through stories mostly of telling the story of Stinchcombe, whether it's the sunrise, the sunset, the ferry, the weather, day-to-day life, what's going on, just the beauty of the location. So whether you know the place and love it and miss it, that story kept going, and it still goes. But if you were desperately looking for somewhere to go and were limited to the UK, it was very easy to fall in love with that place if you'd never been before.
And indeed, you've given me a prime opportunity just to plug our Shorties Awards, because of course Beach Retreats did win a Shorties Award for that particular campaign. So again, feel free to check out our website and learn more about that particular campaign for Beach Retreats. But Kate, are there you mentioned there those regional businesses on a larger scale as well? Have there been any other particular large global brands that have impressed you in terms of their use of social media as well?
I think it's worth touching on the way that bigger brands use social media to not necessarily engage the consumer, so in a more B2B way. So let's take the biggest of them all in the vacation rental world, shall we, and talk about Airbnb. Love them or loathe them, they hit the headlines for their massive product update a few months ago. But part of that headline making story was the fact that Brian Chesky took to Twitter to tweet each individual update with a little bit of information and a link to more detail. Now, combine that with a stat from Sprout Social, which is that 70% of consumers feel more connected to a brand that has an active CEO on social media, and it would be easy to say that they'd hit the nail on the head. However, they're an enormous brand, a global brand with millions of followers. And I imagine that the missing link in that customer communication loop was an ability or an inability to respond to all the replies to those tweets. And that's where the challenge of social media comes up for the bigger brands, because yes, they've got the budgets to have big teams, but when it's an individual who is supposedly or apparently or definitely putting those tweets out there, how do you manage it? Do you proactively manage it and say, clearly I'm not able to respond to all these tweets, but blah, 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 or do you just ignore them? So, or do you dig deep and invest the time? Customer service and social media is a really mixed bag of pros and cons. And
it's interesting you mentioned Airbnb and Brian Chesky there, because they're actually announcing their winter product release. I think it's something called the Metaverse. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong on that, but we'll certainly cover it on short-term rentals. I believe I saw a thread on social media from Chesky yesterday, so by all means pay attention to that later today. Sarah, I know you've been waiting patiently there in the background, and I'm thank you for that, Kate. So Sarah, you're with your business as well, you're an online marketing resource for independent hotels, it's restaurants, it's lamp sites, etc. Probably missing a couple as well. But do you think, based on what you've heard, do you think brands have actually shifted their social media strategies during the pandemic that significantly?
I agree with Kate, actually, that I think the brands and the businesses that embraced it, rather than shrink away, I think there was some nervousness to start with. I saw with clients and sort of monitoring what was going on, where people felt they didn't know what they were allowed to say, and they were worried that if they put out messages, they would be seen to encouraging people to break the rules. Because obviously when we were in, excuse me, in full lockdown, there was that tricky balance between staying front of mind, which obviously is the beauty of social, and being sort of that omnipresence that Will talked about, and being out there, but also not being seen to encourage people to do things that they weren't allowed to do. So I think I saw a lot of businesses, particularly in our sort of Visit Dean White area, where people actually tried to focus more on the sense of community and the shared experiences. So the fact that we're sort of all in it together. Tried to bring some humour, which is very British, in terms of trying to make a joke out of adversity. And, you know, what does your walk around the block look like? You know, trying to sort of, and things like when we were allowed to do things like takeaways. So a lot of the food people locally were sort of sharing stories and funnies about, you know, everyone was obviously fed up sort of maybe cooking for themselves and being stuck in their own four walls. So there was a push towards sort of sharing, I suppose, shared experiences, but remotely. So sharing that through social about, you know, the fact that we were stuck in our own four walls or walking around the block. What does that look like for you? What does your lockdown day look like? I had one of my clients who runs a small independent hotel, and their head chef actually stayed resident in the hotel, and he did his coronavirus diaries, which was a great way of staying present. And he's very funny, and he was trying out different sourdough recipes and trying different things that he'd never had time when he's obviously as head chef, when he's working on a day-to-day basis. But that was brilliant for their social following, and also it created that sense of, you know, how we were all trying to while away the time while we were dreaming of maybe future days when we could go traveling again.
And talking of shared experiences, how is this conducive to actually aligning with that ideal guest profile that you talk so much about as well?
I think also for a lot of businesses, yeah, it helps you to draw out a bit of the brand personality. So connecting you with the right ideal guests and like you said, ideal guest persona. So as they get to know you more as a business, and maybe you're sharing a bit more information, especially for us as, you know, like us running our treehouse, but, you know, it's husband and wife team. It's like, it isn't a big corporate. Being able to share through stories sort of a bit more about us and what's going on behind the scenes, you start to align and attract people who are, you know, drawn in by your ethos and your motivations to run your hospitality business. And unless you're a really big hospitality brand, you know, there's an awful lot of small independent businesses in our sector, and they are run by people. You know, not only, you know, even if you've got a larger organization, you've got a lot of people on the front desk, behind the scenes, but, you know, for a lot of hospitality businesses, we are very small teams, and there's often a story behind that. So I think it's helped to sort of share that through, people have probably been a bit more open about sharing that sort of stuff during the pandemic, and then hopefully it's helped them to connect with their ideal guests and build that more strongly.
And talking of connections and community, moving on to the next point, but we've seen the rise of social media channels as well, becoming quite omnipresent within the industry. Will, I know you're a particularly avid fan, I think, of Clubhouse as well. So could you tell us maybe, you know, what platforms like Clubhouse have taught you, and, you know, what is so significant about it for your business and for connecting with others?
Yeah, no, Clubhouse was, I think I was one of the first 200,000 people on the platform before it started to open up. And it was really cool because you saw people that I've never heard of in the industry, even outside of the industry and other, you know, segments, really just talking about like their lives, but then also what they've learned and how they're getting through it and applying it to their daily life at work or at home with the kids, with their significant other or whatever. And then it was like, okay, you get to see a CEO or an executive in some company that you look up to, really kind of take down that PR wall. And it allowed you to kind of feel like it was okay to be more vulnerable for yourself, which then led to more genuine connections, which, you know, I've learned through Clubhouse as well. You know, not everyone that is good on stage is as real as they are on the stage. So you have to be a little careful on who you kind of like bring into that community. But as Ya was saying, you know, and Ya, I want to say to you, like, I love your business after hearing you talk. I have 5 sisters and 6 nieces, so I take that very close to heart. So I just want to give you I love what you're doing. Just wanted to say that really quick. But yeah, you have the people that were really good on stage and were selfishly having a, you know, ulterior motive on why they're on stage, what they're saying, versus those who were actually there to bring community. So they were reaching out with people outside of Clubhouse on platforms like Instagram, Twitter, etc. And now you see them everywhere. They formed these really solid brand partnerships. And another thing I learned from Clubhouse, and I've known from the podcast side, is like audio is really powerful. You have the ability to access consumers more on audio than people realize. You know, when it comes to YouTube, you have to kind of pay attention and read subtitles, or, you know, kind of have it close by to your face. Same thing with Facebook and Instagram, you're scrolling constantly. Audio, I've heard people say they listen to a podcast while they're swimming laps in their pool, with waterproof headphones that, you know, they bought off of Amazon for, you know, $50 or whatever. Like, that's some instant access to a consumer that you just can't reach anywhere else. So I think Clubhouse really is driving the rise of audio, you know, content and marketing via podcasts, via other people's social media channels. So it's been really cool to see the community grow in that space.
Thank you, Will. And Sarah, are you equally as enthusiastic as Will about Clubhouse? Are there platforms and channels?
I'm personally not a big fan. I am on Clubhouse. I think probably like many people, and just because we're marketers doesn't mean that we're any more capable than our sort of maybe our clients and our audience out there today, able to sort of spread ourselves across all these different channels. And I find that there are too many. What with Messenger and WhatsApp and everything else, it can be quite overwhelming. And to Will's point about the fact that I don't disagree that audio can reach, you know, obviously it's a very powerful tool in terms of reaching people. I do listen to podcasts, which I tend to play when I'm doing other things. But I also like to switch social off so that I have time away from social. And I think a lot of my clients and the people that I work with have sort of said that they just feel a bit overwhelmed by the fact that it's seeping in, and it does through all the different platforms, seep into your life at sort of every angle. And I think it's quite hard for people to sort of put their phones down and have time away from social platforms. So I think Clubhouse has been quite big on B2B. I'm not so sure that as many consumers, there's lots of varied topics on there, but not so many consumers sort of going to it as their first port of call. They're probably still turning to the big boys like Facebook and Instagram.
I know you mentioned,
and I'm a huge fan of Pinterest as well.
I was going to say, actually, I know you're a big fan of Pinterest. So from a short-term rental perspective, how do you think it is useful for whether it's, local brands, bigger brands, what's the benefit of using Pinterest?
I think if you're a lifestyle brand in any sense, it's massive. And I think it's often overlooked, and it tends to be when I talk to clients, it's the one that they haven't really considered. But all of the data sort of shows that in terms of actually e-commerce and online sales, it's more effective than all the other platforms in terms of getting people, because the links take people directly back to pages where there's, particularly if you're a retailer and you've got product, but also with what we do, we have experiences, and travel is a massive segment within where Pinterest is very powerful, and being a visual search engine, particularly if you've got unique features. So we, for example, at the Treehouse, got outdoor bathing. So if you're clever and you create boards around more of the experiences or the locations, like destinations, so if you're in Cornwall or you're in a particular well-known location, or you've got particular features like outdoor bathing, outdoor cooking, you can actually use the boards to pin your content along with others, and therefore you can be found. And often when I work with clients, they're often quite surprised that they're getting traffic from Pinterest, even though they are not on Pinterest themselves, in terms of they haven't got an account and they're not actively putting content together on boards, but they are being, because all of us can pin web pages. I have a board which is called Great Places to Stay, because I find content, I go, wow, that looks amazing. I know I'm not going to remember necessarily that in 6 months' time, so I pin it by country or county or destination. And then I can go back to it when I'm planning a trip. And that behaviour is not dissimilar to what a lot of other people do in terms of, particularly with things like the Chrome pin extension. You can literally just pin pages really easily and have them there for future reference. So I think people turn to that sometimes more than Google if it's got a visual element to it. So it's a very powerful tool.
And Kate, would you concur with that, whether it's on the audio side as Bruce so Catherine talked about, or are you more on the visual side of it with the Pinterest, the TikToks in this world?
I think it depends what kind of absorber of content that you are. And I'm not very good at the auditory style of content absorption. I had tried podcasts time and again, and I just drift. I'm 10 minutes in, I haven't a clue what anybody has said, but I'm probably in the minority. And Clubhouse flew at the time, I think, because we had so little physical connection with people. It was a way to connect with people beyond words. And it was, concurrent with this explosion of popularity around podcasts. For me personally, too noisy. And I think, we're right in saying it's hard for brands to be there, and it's hard as a B2C channel. But I saw lots of active communications and connections being made between individuals and individuals who were running their own individual brands and businesses. And, I saw all of things, that's where I first saw Will. And I've seen exactly what he has described, that those people popping up in all sorts of places and taking their connections with them. Pinterest is brilliant. I think it's gone through its reputational graveyard piece and come out the other side, but it probably is still a very female-oriented platform. However, it's really powerful from a search engine optimization perspective, driving traffic, and as Sarah, you said, from a lifestyle perspective, I've seen it work really powerfully for travel brands, for restaurants, for wedding venues. Those are really, really key sectors for that kind of content, because we absorb the visual as far as those things go. We buy with our eyes in those situations. And TikTok, I'm too old for TikTok, I think. The stats say that 60% of the audience is aged 16 to 24. So if you go down that textbook marketing route, then, and you go, is my audience on that channel? Yes, no, then you probably wouldn't go there. But if you're a slightly bullish brand who's just prepared to try something and to step outside of your core strategy to see if something's got a chance of getting, of working, piquing interest, and, dare I say it, going viral, then why not give it a go? Because there is no harm in trying.
And
Kate, I'm too old as well. But on that point, what Kate was saying about lifestyle and being very female orientated for Pinterest, 80% of women make decisions about travel in terms of, doing the research and then going, should we go here, darling? So if you look at the statistics, females often drive that, although it may not be them that are paying or, depending on the purchase decision. But ultimately, women are very influential. I know when I look at Facebook statistics, it's often very much sort of, 70 or 80, 30 in terms of the female followers, particularly for travel brands. So, we tend to maybe make the suggestions, or maybe we just force the decision to get organised and book something. I know I have to do that in my household. Otherwise, we'd be deciding everything last minute and we wouldn't be going anywhere.
Are you a Clubhouse user? Are you Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest? What's your preferred channel for FriendBNB?
Actually, I'm more of Instagram and LinkedIn. Recently, I kind of took a break from LinkedIn a bit, but I'm more of both. I think Instagram. I'm not a big fan of Facebook right now. However, I'm on Facebook because we do have a community on Facebook, so I have to kind of go on there from time to time and communicate with some of our members that's on there. We, in terms of Clubhouse, we actually got on Clubhouse last year, at the end of last year. It was really great. As you said, interacting with different people, connecting with different people, but we really did not find a huge benefit for us as a company. I was definitely connecting with people on a personal level, or maybe on a professional level. However, really getting people to go on our site and sign up was really hard. I kind of drifted off of Clubhouse. The excitement was there for the first, few weeks, a month, and then it was just not there again. And I found that was very draining, going on there, just constantly everybody just talking. And sometimes, just taking a break from that is what I find myself doing most of the time with social media. So after I took a break from Clubhouse, it was just really hard for me to go back, and I never went back again. But so far for us, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter also has been helping, and Pinterest. We're actually using Pinterest as well, more on the hosting side of things, really getting, working with a company that basically knows everything about Pinterest and getting all the information that we need to get there, especially the visuals about rooms and how it's supposed to be set up, and as a new host, how you may set up your room and all that stuff. So we're really utilizing Pinterest for that aspect of it. But Clubhouse, honestly, I was excited the first few weeks, a month, and that was it for me.
Well, let's go to Sarah, actually, because there's probably loads of social media trends that we could go into, and we've only got an hour to do this. But how can businesses, do you think, actually stay on top of the trends? Are there particular guest demographics that are more suitable for certain platforms, and for others there are other platforms?
I think ultimately my advice always with social is you have to go back to your targeting. You have to go back to who your ideal guests are. And it's always the worst thing I hear when someone says, well, anyone can stay here, or, I can appeal to everyone, because actually it just makes the marketing job that much harder. But I saw an interesting statistic that 89% of millennials plan their travel based on their peers' posted content. So, and there's probably lots of different statistics out there, but it's definitely depending on who you appeal to. So for example, with our treehouse, we have two distinct demographics and profiles, personas. We have the young millennials, those are 25 to 35, and then we have a slightly older, more interested in nature, the eco side, walking, which are probably the 45, food and drink and exploring the local area, and that's the sort of 45 to 60. And they very much sort of split down Instagram for the millennials, and we get more from Facebook when it's the older profiles. So I will do different activity based on the different personas and what appeals to them. I've tried posting sort of nature and eco messages on Instagram, and it falls flat because they just want to see things, the beautiful treehouse and the outdoor bath and all of the lovely interiors we've made. You know, they don't really, there's not many that actually then, it's just interesting to see the different reaction and the engagement rates on the posts depending on the content, and you learn, you know, what connects with them. And ultimately, my husband always jokes about the comments about it looking dreamy, you know, and that tends to be a lot of the comments that you get on Instagram. It's that visual impact, and then aspiring to stay in that location and that particular, you know, in our particular property. So it very much, I think you can get, and I'd say that's the same with Clubhouse. You can, you know, I often get, you know, clients saying, should I be on Clubhouse? Should I be on TikTok? And they can get pulled along by, you know, platforms that are new and trending and that they're hearing about. And actually, I'll always try and take them back to, okay, let's look at who your ideal guests are and where they are online, and where you can also provide the right content to connect with them and get the right messaging so that you can actually, you know, convert that into bookings at the end of the web traffic and bookings. Because ultimately, being on 5 or 6 platforms and exhausting yourself and then achieving nothing is not going to do them any good in the long term. So I tend to ignore the trends a little bit. Obviously, my job is to be in touch with what's developing in the industry, but ultimately I'll bring my clients back to looking at, you know, their ideal guests and where they need to connect with them through social. And how it also ties up with all their other marketing activity, because you know, we're talking about social today, but actually a lot of the other marketing activity needs to align with that, so that they're not just putting all their eggs in one basket. As we saw the other day with the Facebook outage, it left a lot of people going, oh, what do I do? I can't talk to my audience. You know, having 10,000 people on social that you can't talk to obviously isn't going to do their business any good. So, you know, I'm a huge fan of investing in your website and things like email marketing alongside what you're doing on social to build the brand and that connection with your business, to actually convert it into bookings at the end of the day.
I think that's kind of a Q&A about which 2 social media platforms would you recommend new brands to consider. I think that's kind of answered that there, and Harvey, I certainly urge you to connect with the panel afterwards, after the session, if there are any other points you'd like to discuss with our speakers today. And of course, I encourage anyone else in the audience to do the same. Kate, I'll come to you, because there are obviously businesses that have fewer resources when it comes to social media, or they don't have their own social media expert, maybe like we've got on our panel today. So what do you think those businesses can do to keep on top of the latest trends? What have they got to be aware of, etc.?
I think when you've got very little resource and probably very little time, and also perhaps a lack of knowledge, is if you can figure out where your audience is most likely to be based, you know, at a most basic level on their demographics, pick a channel and focus on it. Learn what you can by following experts in that channel who are active on that channel. And when you take Instagram, for example, that's really easy. There are hundreds of thousands of Instagram experts on Instagram, but it's the same on Facebook. It will be the same on Twitter. And I think you pick one, you focus on it, you commit to it, and you commit to that at the level that you can commit to. If that's 1 post a week, it's 1 post a week. It probably won't be very effective, but if you can get yourself into the habit of posting regularly as you can, learn from those experts how to use some of the tools that the platforms create, and that they create because they want you to use, because it will push your content higher up the algorithm. Then do, and be yourself. So be true to who you are, be true to your brand values, if you know what they are, if you've established what they are, but they will come through naturally if you are putting yourself front of camera or in the pictures, or being the voice of your brand on Clubhouse.
I think we've got some very defined brand values on our panel, and ultimately it seems to tie into how businesses can actually stand out. There's a fragmented short-term rental marketplace that we've talked many times about, but in this social media savvy generation, there's so many different channels, so many different companies and doing various things within the market. So yeah, how with your business, how have you been able to resonate with female travellers? You've done a soft launch. How do you think you've managed to achieve that?
Well, I think that we've managed to achieve that through, social media has been a huge a marketing tool for us, a strategy. So when we did initially soft launched, we had a wait list that we basically drive that wait list through our social media. And basically when we soft launched to that wait list that we had. And the word basically started to spread based on what we initially did. So when it happened, when we launched, we actually did get a lot of people that were talking about us on social media. We also did some interviews, right, with some influencers that also went out to talk about what we are trying to do. And essentially snowball there, got some media attention because of that. We didn't even expect to get so much media attention when we first soft launched, but because of the message that we are sending, also the mission that we're on, and the fact that we're really here to create a safe space for women, to really support women travel endeavors, and also support women hosts altogether, really resonated with a lot of people. And during the time we also did soft launch, there was an issue that happened with an Airbnb guest that essentially found a hidden camera in her room. Basically, the hidden camera was in a charger, and she was able to. So we actually reached out to her to really find out how we can actually help her. Essentially, that also snowballed, and we had a messaging around that. Honestly, I think social media did play a big role in terms of us really getting our messaging forward and really resonating with women out there. And especially since traveling is starting to pick up again, they really wanted to hear what we wanted to offer. We're doing it.
Indeed, it was only a week or two ago, I think we were discussing this, but you had an article come out in the Telegraph featuring 4 apps that sort of advocate female are working to achieve female safety in travel. How are you? What are your ambitions really to get with Femmebnb? You've got grants, I think, to help with your development.
Yes. So we've been lucky to really, we've been bootstrapping most of the time. We haven't actually really gone out to look for funding. However, we also been lucky to get some grants, win some competitions. And in the past month, we received about $27,000 in grants. So we are hoping to, integrate more features in our platform. And essentially, we want to, at the end of the day, create an end-to-end travel solution for women that is from booking your accommodation with us to really enhancing your travel through experiences and through connection. And that is essentially what we're trying to create. And that's the big vision that we have, creating an end-to-end travel solution for women to alleviate safety issues or travel anxieties overall for women overall. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Yeah. I tend to Sarah, because when we were having our call, there's some amazing statistics that you've got. You were on the Channel 4 TV show Extraordinary Escapes earlier this year.
March of this year.
And so you've got your own treehouse business, of course. I'll let you get those stats yourself, but how has that helped your business, and how has this maybe been achieved through social media?
Yes, it's a good question. I mean, we were actually found by the production company through our website. So they found us through search. So it just shows the importance of having your own home on the web and not relying on third parties and platforms. So obviously we can control that. And we'd worked really hard to create a very branded experience with the hideout and the theme around it. So obviously that caught their attention. We had invested heavily in photography and videography to sort of bring the space to life. So the production company found us. We were already fully booked until the end of this year. And then we went out on the show, I think it was 3rd of March it aired, and we literally had 50 bookings in 48 hours. Our website, we were watching, because I'm a bit of a marketing geek, I was watching Google Analytics live to see what happened to our web traffic, because I was quite a bit worried that the site might fall over with the volume of people that were watching the show, but it went from 0 to 1,500 in about 3 seconds, which was sort of made my heart flutter. And then literally, my husband and I, we were exhausted by the end of the evening because the amount of messages and literally booking after booking. And we sold out until October 2022 from March. So basically, it sold out another sort of another 9 months of our business from being on the show. And we now have over 1,500 people on a waiting list who want to come and stay. So, and we can only take 150 stays a year, so because it is just one treehouse. So it's put us in a very strong position. It's obviously built on the foundations that we've put in place, but yeah, it's very exciting to get picked up and featured on such a high profile show.
And you know, Will, it all comes down again to knowing your audience, and with all of the podcasts and things that you're doing now within the industry, how crucial has it become to really delve into who your audience is, like you've heard from our other panelists, and help your own ideas for content creation?
Yeah, to be honest, it changed the name of the game for me. I was able to quit my hotel management job when I discovered my audience wasn't on Facebook and they weren't on Instagram. They weren't travelers, they weren't hosts, they weren't B2C, as we say. It was all B2B. It was very much the entrepreneurs in the space. It was very much the executives, the CEOs, the young, ambitious founders that are making changes in the industry. I had no idea. I made a LinkedIn when I was 19 years old out of boredom because I was told to, and then it actually became the biggest platform for me to reach my audience. It wasn't Instagram. I would post stuff about podcasts and get very little to interaction and engagement. And Facebook started to take off a little bit, but still wasn't my demographic until I discovered like the B2B side was really crucial. Now running a management company, learning the B2C side better is becoming a lot different. So I'm not going to get bookings on LinkedIn for any of our properties, most likely. I might get referrals for new properties, or maybe a good connection for a service provider to embed into my business. But I'm not going to get 50 bookings in 48 hours from a LinkedIn post. So learning the B2C side, getting better with Pinterest and Instagram and Facebook, and reaching the people that we do want to touch with experiences and moments and that feeling of hospitality, right? So it's pretty crucial to know, because if you're pretty much beating a dead horse in a spot that doesn't need to be marketed to, then I guess you're just wasting efforts, and you could eventually just have to figure out something else. So,
and I hate the word that I'm about to say, but and it's influencer, but and I mean, we could say any of us on the panel today are influencers, or anyone really within hospitality or this industry. But I'd be interested to get your thoughts on do you see benefits of working with influencers? Is there something to be wary of as well with it at the same time?
Yeah, like there's influencer marketing has never been like it's not like a brand new thing that happened during COVID. There's influencers, when I was in high school in 2012 or 2011, where people were making money off of Instagram. They were making money off of Facebook. They're making money off of whatever that may be. But I think now, like kind of like how we talked about Clubhouse and that access that it gives to people, the more social media platforms like TikTok, we're seeing TikTok, people get on there for 6 months. They get 1 million followers in 6 months and are able to quit their job and do that content creation full time. And they literally call themselves, as their job title, content creators. That's all they do. They make 100 videos a day. They schedule them out. They throw out the bad ones. They do this, they do that. That's their job now. They get paid from TikTok platform or sponsors and everything like that. So it's not new. It's definitely taking off. So definitely be more careful of who you're partnering with. I learned that easily from just the growth of my podcast. You know, who do you partner with? Who do you align with? Because that message needs to be consistent across the board, whether you're mainly on TikTok or whether you're on LinkedIn. Like being consistent, having good alignment and partnerships, that is what's going to make your business grow, because it's going to be a organic push for people to want to work with you. And so it's just managing that I hate the word term influencer, but you get to manage that influence and in the way that best aligns for you and your business.
And thank you very much for that, Will. And similarly, you know, you work with female organizations as well, so brand alignment, you could say, is equally as important for your own business. But you know, do you see influencers really pushing out the message for female solo travel as we emerge from this pandemic?
Certainly. I see a lot of travel influencers really pushing out solo women travel trends. Even I've seen a lot of influencers starting to travel again, putting out tips how to travel safely. So I think influencers do have a lot of influence on travelers. And as Sarah said before, there is there's a correlation of, visuals. When people actually do put things out there on social media, you tend to have their peers doing the same thing. So, women that do want to travel, but do have the fear to travel, when they see that their counterpart or someone else is doing it, they're more eager to do the same thing. So, there was a huge trend with Bali, traveling to Bali, because there's so many people doing it on social media, so many people taking pictures and posting it. So I do think that social media has played a big role and is still playing it as, travel starts to pick up again.
Fantastic. Well, we're almost at the end of this discussion. I can see that there's 2 questions in the chat. I just don't think we're quite going to fit these in, but we do have a 2-minute countdown coming just before we close this webinar. So, Will, we've got a question in from Natasha Garbutt in the Q&A, and Kate, we've got a question to you as well from Dahlia Hill, also in the chat. So feel free to connect and to help answer those questions within those 2 minutes, or to connect after the discussion has finished. So I want to thank all of our contributors today for a fantastic discussion, to Yar, to Will, to Kate and to Sarah. There's so many more questions that we could have asked, but alas, we're at the end of the hour today. We're actually back for the next Rockstars webinar. That's on Tuesday, the 23rd of November, with a session on appealing to Gen Z and millennials. So hopefully a lot of you will be encouraged to sign up based on today's discussion. And the link is in the chat as well for that. And for sponsorship opportunities, please do get in touch with my colleague Katie, whose details are also on the screen for you now. A big thanks again to our series sponsor Flywire for sponsoring our Rockstars series. Big thank you to them. And as I said there, we're going to keep the session open for another 2 minutes, so you can jot down any details that have emerged in the chat. If you'd like to connect with any of our speakers, panelists who've been here present today, please do make use of those 2 minutes and after the session. And of course, feel free to contact us about our various channels. You can see them on screen now. So all that's left for me to say is to say thank you again for listening. To all our speakers, a big thank you. And we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.